Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Nick Ball sees Brandon Figueroa as a kindred spirit, but certain that he's on another level. Liverpool, England. Well-rested and happy WBA featherweight world champion Nick Ball is raring to get back to action. Sat on a balcony at Liverpool's Box Park, the Liverpudlian looked down at the screens advertising his February 7th title defense against the dangerous American Brandon Figueroa. It's a proper one, isn't it? Ball said, before the event's launch press conference started. You don't become a two-weight world champion by being average. He fights like me. Well, he's gonna find out he's nothing like me, but there are similarities, it's true. Nick Ball is a pressure guy, and so is Brandon Figueroa. Discrepancies in height and length aside, they have the same style. Outwardly, it looks like a David and Goliath kind of situation, but in terms of strategy, they've got the same one, though I would say that Nick is a bit dirtier than Brandon Figueroa. We always highlight Nick Ball's dirty boxing and roughhouse tactics, a lot of what he gets away with. In March of 2024, the ring's number 3 featherweight embarked on a run of 5 world title fights within 18 months. He was held to a controversial split draw by the WBC champion Ray Vargas of Mexico, but just 3 months later, he outfought Raymond Ford to win the WBA title. Capitalizing on his success, Ball returned to Liverpool and stopped the experienced Ronnie Rios and TJ Doheny. In August, he outpointed Australia's Sam Goodman. Ball did more than enough to beat the smart Goodman, but wasn't at his rampaging best. After bouncing from camp to camp, Ball took a few months to recuperate, and the thought of taking on the aggressive, accomplished Figueroa has reawakened the same excitement he felt before the fights with Vargas and Ford. It's on, he said. Every fight, you've got to be on it. Your life's on the line. Even more so with a fighter like this, you've got to be on it. You can't switch off. That fight between them is sure to get off to a fast start, where I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Nick putting his judo skills back on display. Him being the noticeably shorter fighter with the lower center of gravity is what allows him to catch much taller guys off balance. You've got to listen to the people around you and keep doing what you've been doing. The relentless aggressive Ball has been able to impose himself on all of his professional opponents. Despite standing in at 5'9", which is tall for a featherweight, Figueroa is happy to give away his advantages in height and reach and engage his opponents within close quarters. In July, he threw more than 1,000 punches as he outpointed Joet Gonzalez in what was their WBA title eliminator. Ball won't have to persuade Figueroa to hold his feet. The Texan will come to Liverpool looking for a fight. He better, because he's the away fighter. And the old saying goes, you don't coast on foreign soil. He's going to, isn't he? Ball said. He's coming over to Liverpool to try and take my belt. He's got a world title opportunity, hasn't he? He's going to come and try. That's his job to do. Is he going to succeed? Ball added with a smile. Who knows? Ball 28 is the longest reigning of Britain's 4 reigning world champions right now. He also keeps the most low profile. He doesn't live his life through social media and is rarely seen unless he is supporting one of his teammates from the Everton Red Triangle gym. Figueroa would be a noteworthy addition to what is rapidly becoming one of the deepest resumes in British boxing. Fighters who have achieved a fraction of what he has receive far more attention, but Ball hasn't spent a second thinking about where he stands in the domestic pecking order. That's not for me to answer. That's for you guys and the people watching to answer. He said, I feel like I'm an exciting fighter. People always want to watch all action fighters put it all on the line. Everyone's got their opinions. People are going to say it. People aren't going to say it. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to continue doing me. Not exempt from criticism, there's a common denominator in every single one of Nick Ball's opponents since he became WBA champion. Whether it's TJ Doheny, or Ronnie Rios, or Sam Goodman, or in this instance Brandon Figueroa, these are all fighters who hail from the lower weights, all guys who moved up from 122 up to 126 to the point you start to wonder if Nick Ball has sworn off
fighting featherweights.
And I feel like he means to keep doing that everything he's done up until this point is just him keeping busy, waiting for another super bantamweight to move up in Inoue.
There are 3 other featherweight champions out there for Nick to fight, but I don't really see him pushing to have fights with them. He might view the Inoue fight as being bigger.
Simultaneously more winnable because it would be against the smaller fighter moving up in weight, worth a lot of money. Though first he has to make it past the former champion Brandon Figueroa, who stands in at a statuesque 5'9", to Nick Ball, who stands in at a modest 5'2".
Both boys throw punches in bunches within close quarters. This fight might look a lot like Brian Mendoza versus Sebastian Fundora. The taller fighter giving up his height to the shorter fighter often favors the shorter fighter because he's got shorter arms, thus not needing as much room to work, able to string together combinations quickly within close quarters, quicker than the taller guy with the longer arms.
So Nicky's got the edge there, and he's got home field advantage. It's going down in Liverpool.
Edge and power, I'd say they're about the same. Nick is a pressure guy, and he does hit hard, but it's a cumulative damage. He doesn't have that one-hitter-quitter Julian Jackson kind of power. I think the same applies to Brandon. I'm leaning towards Nick Ball to win this thing, I am. Though not looking completely past Brandon Figueroa, because as much as Brandon giving up his height will make him subject to Nick Ball's power, Nick will be subject to Brandon's as well.
In the exchange, anything can happen. In men's super lightweight news, champion Antuanne-Russell versus challenger Andy Hiraoka finds yet another date for WBA title fight. The Antuanne-Russell versus Andy Hiraoka junior welterweight title fight is being planned for the first quarter of 2026, sources tell The Ring. Russell versus Hiraoka was set to take place on November 14th on the Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis undercard. Russell, like Davis, is with the PBC, so when Paul went on to fight Joshua, a matchroom boxer, Russell versus Hiraoka needed a new home. Russell, the younger brother of former champion Gary Russell, won the title back in March with a wide points win over Rayo Valenzuela in New York. That followed Gary's first defeat against Alberto Puello last year. Russell, 29, is the ring's number 5 boxer at 140 pounds. He fights out of Capitol Heights, Maryland. Japan's Hiraoka is the ring's number 10 junior welterweight. In his last fight, he stopped Ishmael Barroso in round 9 on September of 2024. That means he would have sat out all of this year waiting for his crack at the apple.
I hadn't realized he'd been out for that long.
Though what I do know is this fight between him and Gary must have been rescheduled at least 2 to 3 times by my count. That's what the article doesn't mention, that they tried to make it before and every single time it got moved. Now it's one of 2 fights the PBC plans on staging in the first quarter of next year. The other is the Sebastian Fundora versus Keith Thurman fight that they also plan on rescheduling.
I have a theory. With all the rumors swirling about a Mayweather versus Pacquiao rematch, financed by Netflix, you have to wonder what's going to be on the undercard and who's going to be at the helm of the promotion. I would imagine that it would be the PBC, and I would imagine that on the undercard, you're going to see a lot of PBC fighters.
The PBC did Manny Pacquiao's last few fights, and we know they've got some obvious associations to Floyd Mayweather, that if Netflix is really going to do that thing,
it's going to be a bunch of PBC guys on the undercard. And it wouldn't be a bad-looking undercard if you're getting Fundora versus Thurman and Antuanne-Russell versus Hiraoka on the same show at no additional charge. Remember, when Netflix puts together these mega cards, they don't bill them as pay-per-views like everybody else. They make them available to all their existing subscribers because that's how big a platform they have. So when you think about that, that's actually value for money.
Based on the presupposition that these fights land on the undercard of Maypac 2 on Netflix's dime. We'll see if it happens that way, but either way, Antuanne-Russell versus Andy Hiraoka is a fight that I do have an appetite for, perhaps more so than some more high-profile fights that are already on schedule, like Stevenson versus Lopez, or anything in association with Devin Haney.
Anything in association with Richardson Hitchens.
The reason for it: there are enough cerebral fighters fighting out of a Philly shell that I've had my fill of Mayweather wannabes and pure boxers.
Enough already.
No matter how high profile the fight, when that's the style of the guys in the ring, it's not gonna be exciting, whereas Gary, who's not as well known and not as talked about, he's an action guy, and so is Andy.
Action fighter versus action fighter. Now, it really doesn't help the plight of Andy Hiraoka that he hasn't boxed since September of last year. That doesn't help his situation, or that the night of, he will not only be the away fighter,
He's gonna be in Gary's house. Gary will be the house fighter.
Andy has to knock him out. It's the only way to win. The saving grace is he's gonna try to. It's a really good fight, even if it doesn't have the highest profile, and I'm looking forward to it whenever it happens, wherever it lands.
Over to the men's junior middleweight division, where manager Rick Merrigan can't understand why Virgil Ortiz versus Jaron Ennis is the gift nobody wants to receive.
Ready for another long-winded boxing scene article.
Virgil Ortiz's manager, Rick Merrigan, has given an update on what is currently holding up a potential clash with Jaron Ennis. The pair were mentioned as potential opponents even before Ennis moved up to junior middle, but after the former welterweight champion made the jump up to 154, it seemed the fight to make in the division. Ennis impressed with a first-round finish of Uisma Lima in October in his first bout at 154, with both Ennis and his promoter Eddie Hearn talking up a fight with Ortiz. Then in November, it was Ortiz's turn to respond to Ennis, showing, and he did so with a second-round dismantling of Erickson Lubin. Ennis was in attendance for the bout in Fort Worth, Texas, and after the pair squared off in the ring following Ortiz's win, it seemed inevitable that the pair would lock horns next year. However, there appears to be a problem at the negotiation table which is causing a holdup. There were rumors that Ortiz could face former unified welterweight champion Errol Spence in an all-Texas clash instead of one with Ennis. Dan Rafael reported per source, DAZN, which has dibs on Ortiz's fights, will not allow Spence fight to happen. DAZN are exerting intense pressure on Golden Boy, Ortiz's promoter, to get the Ennis fight done.
And never mind how tactless and shameless it is to be pursuing a fight with Errol, who's still coming off the loss to Terrence and hasn't boxed in close to 3 years.
Rick Merrigan spoke to Boxing Scene to clear up what is holding up Ortiz versus Ennis negotiations at the moment, based on public comments by network executives at DAZN, meeting with our promoter and the tone of it. I think the network is attempting to impose and force both the fighter and the promoter to do what they say, and that's it, Merrigan said. While I think it's foolish to do that and do it in public for a litany of reasons, that's it. It's okay. It's just business, and they have the right to attempt that, as we have the right to do many things contractually also. Ortiz has a proper minimum, gets multiple opponents to be offered each fight, and we can legally fight where the best opportunity comes from. Period. As it should be. Respect and loyalty runs both ways. Show them and receive them. Saying things publicly like that makes it hard to explain to a fighter who will fight and has fought everyone. It seems as though the money placed on the table for Ortiz versus Ennis,
What it all comes down to, the money.
it's not what Merrigan was expecting for a fight between the two best fighters in that division. In recent times, Saudi financier Turki Al Sheikh has been involved in funding these so-called mega fights, but neither Riyadh Season or The Ring have been interested in the bout between Ortiz and Ennis as of late. I'm not sure why, and I'm sure it's complicated, Merrigan said. We are grateful to Turki Al Sheikh for prior opportunities, and should they not have interest here, for whatever reason, we look forward to working with them in the future. I can only guess and or speculate as to why, so I won't. I like dealing in facts. So is a fight between Ortiz and Ennis reliant on Saudi investment in order to happen?
Well, that's what I said, and that's what I thought. That where initially Turkey was going to pay for this thing, now he's cooled on that idea, and it looks a lot like it's down to Matchroom and Golden Boy to make it happen, making the money less than it was before.
No, not at all. My offer back was an easy one, and to sum it up, DAZN can make this fight for about the cost of one single guy that has just fought on their network this past month, and will fight coming up over the next 120 days on their network, and 6 more set to fight in January and April, again, for just about literally the cost of a single guy coming up on the cards I mentioned. The entire fight can be made, and the network promoter retains all the upside as well. Should it do what they say, as they called it, with Ring, the biggest fight in the sport to make?
Buddy, that was hyperbole when they said that. That's not something you can hold anyone to in negotiations, because in all actuality, it's not the biggest fight to make. I can think of 5 or 6 fights that are bigger financially than Ortiz versus Ennis. Is that all you've got?
I would have thought it could have been done in 2 minutes after that. They would be getting the deal of deals at that, and give the sport, fans, and subscribers what they want. They would be retaining the upside should it do what they think as well. How do you logically argue or beat this? I made this very doable for them. Then they can have the expectations and talk, as my guys all know, that certain fights will come up and be far more than others. Then they will have to go down some until a super fight or a large fight appears again with the public appetite to warrant it. So we are very realistic procedurally.
Sure you are, Rick. That's why the fight isn't made. It's all their fault.
Milligan does not believe that the fee he is asking for is outside the realm of probability for a fight of the caliber of Ortiz versus Ennis, and claims that DAZN are paying much more for fights that are already scheduled for next year. It's literally half the cost of the fights that just took place, and the ones set to take place in January, February, March, and April that I know of, 100% on the same network, he said, with about 12 million to 15 million a month in subscriptions, the pay-per-view element, and most importantly, the move to charge $480 a year now. This is the kind of fight they must deliver, the fans must get, and we are not playing hardball. As you can see, we came in to make it an easy, simple deal. Combine this with all the other prior info, upside for them, etc., and you would think this is a gift from us. We do appreciate them and the support for Ortiz prior, but Ortiz took the fights his opponent would not take multiple times. He is a clean fighter, never failed a drug test, never embarrassed the network, and in an age of track meet fights that no one wants to see, Ortiz delivers action-packed, intelligent fights. He is also positioning himself to be the face of boxing and bring a Canelo-like future to the sport. This is a fighter you take care of, a generational talent.
Listen, let's make a long story short, right?
Cue Ball Ricky is angling for more money than DAZN is willing to kick out for this fight. Likely a number closer to what Turkey was going to put up for the fight, except that Turkey often pays above market value for a fight. So does that mean that the only way to get Ortiz to do this is to pay him more than he's worth? Or than the fight is worth?
You hear Rick keep talking about how Ortiz never failed a drug test. Well, neither did Boots. So who is he talking about,
Ryan.
He keeps saying that Ortiz never embarrassed the network. Well, neither did Boots. So who is he talking about,
Ryan.
And then you see Rick start harping about what other money DAZN is kicking out for other fights that are on the schedule. Ryan has a fight on schedule with Mario Barrios. It seems to me that Ricky wants Virgil to get paid the same way that Ryan gets paid, except Virgil isn't as popular as Ryan.
And I don't even like Ryan. I'm not going up to bat for him, but that's the reality of things. Ryan is a bigger draw than Virgil, more popular than Virgil. Citing his flaws and his drawbacks and the hyperbole around your fight with Boots Ennis doesn't give you leverage in negotiations. The bottom line is, you want more money than DAZN is willing to kick out for this fight.
Which is what it always was. You want more money.
Leave it to the fighters and their teams. It's always supposed to work out to where they get more money.